today's video, I look at the Princeton Real Value brush set. These are the brown handled set of 7. This is my first impressions of them. As you can see, I'm opening up the package from the order I got, taking them all out, and I'm going to have to take off these plastic covers, which are not intended to be put back on. You can damage the bristles if you do, and I need to clean them off in water. Usually a bit of some sort of glue, typically gum arabic, is put to bind the brushes. You really do need to rinse that off before using it with paint. Here I'm testing some different paints. This palette has a mix of watercolor and gouache, which is what I also intend to use the brushes for, and I'm testing out different markings that these brushes can do. I'm testing out how they feel in my hand, how easy they are to move across the page, and how flexible the bristles are. This is very cheap Dollarama, dollar store sketchbook paper, and I like to force watercolor onto such cheap paper because I find there's ways of using it anyway and you end up saving a lot of money that way. I also find you can use gouache on it, especially thickly. Here I'm labeling each different brush by the type of brush it is as I'm using it. This set is interesting, and I do think the brushes are good quality. I've actually used them a little while now. I was intending to do this video a bit faster as I got these for my birthday, but I ended up using them a lot longer, and I find some of them particularly useful and some of them not quite as useful. I do think they're higher quality than some of my cheapest brushes, but lower quality than my favorite or best brushes, except in the case of a couple of them, which I in particular think are especially good in the set. I haven't been using them that long, just a couple months, but it's more than just a pure first impressions. My favorite brush in the whole set has to be the number 4 round, which I think is quite good, and I added it to my main favorite brushes. I've tested out a bunch of the others, and I do think that the angular shader, 1/4 inch, is particularly standout as well. And I do think that the largest one, the 3/4 inch flat wash brush, is also particularly good. I also like the number 2 round as a very good brush. In the middle category, I would put the 2/0 liner brush, which is decent and still very usable. My 2 least favorite are the ones I thought I would enjoy, which is the number 6 flat shader and the number 2 flat shader. I find that they seem to work a bit odd, and I don't know how to put it any other way. Either I haven't practiced using them properly enough yet to really get the hang of them, or they're just not as much for me, or they are slightly lower quality, and I can't be certain. It might just be that they don't vibe with my particular painting style or the way I use brushes, and it might be that they aren't quite as good as the other ones. As I said, the painting style and the way you paint would affect your opinion. Now, originally I was going to do some Permian predators here with these brushes to match the fossil-like look of them. But when it came down to it, I had some artwork I printed out from the line art I'd done on my iPad, and I realized I really wanted to use bright neon colors for this painting. I have to do an underlayer before putting black on top here to make rainbow shimmering black crow type wings on this version of Loki, and I realized using these brushes on this painting, which ended up being a little tricky because there's a lot of really small details, and it would have been nice to have an extremely small fine point brush here. I ended up doing the absolute finest details with fine liners off camera at the end because my head would have gotten in the way because I'd have to get so zoomed in to get the fine details. But I did all the larger details with paint and these paint brushes to especially test them out more for this video and do a painting using only these brushes and, as I said, a couple other tools. Now I'm putting this base layer down knowing that I'm going to go over top with some other glazing layers in a little bit. I really wanted to try some of the Princeton brushes because I'd only heard amazing things. They're more expensive than a lot of the brushes I'd gotten previously, but this set was particularly well priced and certainly less expensive than many other brushes. It was $18.99 Canadian in Canada where I found it, which makes it a total of $21.83 for the set of 7. That makes it about $3.11 a brush, which is a very reasonable price. They're the lowest priced of all the Princeton brushes. I'll ask you to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you're really enjoying my content. And I also have gotten the Velvet Touch quarter-inch dagger striper, and that brush is amazing. One of my favorite brushes I've ever used in my life, and I have to say even better quality than these, and I'd love to get more Velvet Touch. Now, what I can say about these is that they are springy and they don't hold a ton of water, and they're not extremely flexible. They're very synthetic, but that makes them really good if you want to use drier, more controlled painting styles, which is actually my more preferred style overall, although sometimes I do like to go looser and more watery, so I'm probably going to have to invest in some brushes that help that style if I want to work in it more. But these brushes are also, because they're not able to hold as much water and they're springier and more controlled, they're really good for gouache. So I think that these brushes are definitely particularly good for gouache. And as I use watercolor and gouache, and I use gouache separately and I use watercolor separately, as a more of a mixed media artist, I have to highly recommend them as very good for gouache, not just for watercolor itself. And the price is really good considering how many brushes you get. I do have to say that I have definitely used the number 4 round a lot, and it's become one of my favorite round brushes of around that size. As I recently got some other even better brushes, the Art for Joy's Sake brushes. The review will be up at some point. I don't even know when I'm posting the videos, so that review could be up before this review, I'm not sure. I have to say that I definitely can tell that the Art for Joy's Sake brushes are higher quality, and they're definitely my favorites, along with my Princeton Velvet Touch. But these are still better than most of my other paint brushes I owned before that. So they're still really good. I definitely think they're worth owning, especially if you want to use drier, more controlled art styles with watercolor and gouache, and also if you just want to use gouache, because I do think these brushes are particularly good with gouache. So I'm just going to say a little bit about the character I painted here. I have several story types, iterations, and versions of my main story, Chronicle of Valasa, where I am the mortal Valasa reincarnated, and I awaken and magic returns to Earth. The sub-varieties of the story that have many iterations that involve Loki tend to be called Gods Reborn and Gods Awaken. Gods Awaken focuses on the human reincarnated versions of the 10 surviving gods of Ragnarok, which includes Loki every time, and Gods Reborn focuses on not only the Gods Awakening storyline, but also they have new children that the Earth Guy, the Earth Soul, encourages or makes them have between each other and other parents, and then it focuses on these new gods more than even the old ones. Gods Awaken focuses more on the old gods, but all these stories involve Loki and versions of Loki. So this is one version of a Loki from one of those stories, and there's I think I'm up to at least 100 of combining those two story types of Chronicles of Valasa. So there's a lot of different variation. It could even be a different person is Loki reincarnated. And also some versions have the children of the gods and some versions do not have the children of the gods. So interestingly, this was originally a pencil sketch done on the first page of a new sketchbook that I then photographed with my iPad, then drew over new line art in Procreate on my iPad, then put on my computer, then printed out while lowering the opacity to make gray lines instead of black. Then I painted over it using paint, mostly watercolors here. Also, it's printed on a cutout 500 series mixed media paper, 90 pound 100% cotton Strathmore paper. Once again, that's all for this video. If you like my videos, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell to all notifications so you will know when a new video comes up. I aim for new videos every Wednesday, but sometimes life happens and things are delayed. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you with another one very soon.